The roar of the crowd shook the metal walls of the holding cell. Jiwoo stood with her hands wrapped in dirty cloth, listening to the sound of 200,000 alien voices screaming for blood. Her blood, most likely. They always wanted to see the human fall. She had been on Kalthos 9 for 8 months now. 8 months since the Vren patrol ship had caught her scouting vessel near the border zones. 8 months since they had dragged her and her crew to this prison planet and thrown them into the fighting pits. 8 months of learning that the galaxy saw humans as weak, soft, and easy to break. The other fighters from her crew were dead now. Tae had lasted 3 months before a Krovan warrior crushed his skull. Lieutenant Yoon had made it 5 months before bleeding out from wounds that the arena medics refused to treat. Jiwoo was the last one standing, and she had survived 23 matches. 23 times she had walked into that sand-covered floor and faced creatures that should have killed her. 23 times she had walked out alive. The cell door opened with a sharp metallic sound. Doc stood there, his fox-like face showing the nervous expression he always wore before her fights. The little Mirren was her handler, assigned to make sure she got to the arena on time and didn't die before the crowd got their entertainment. "They are calling for you," Doc said in his high-pitched voice. His translator box turned his words into something Jiwoo could understand. "The crowd is very excited today. They brought in a Thulian crusher, very big, very strong." Jiwoo rolled her shoulders and felt the familiar ache in her muscles. The gravity on this planet was lighter than Earth, only about 70% of what she grew up with. It made her faster, stronger, more dangerous than these aliens expected, but it also meant the falls hurt less, which was why the Vren kept making the matches harder. "How big?" she asked. Doc held his small hand up above his head. 3 meters, maybe more. They say it killed 5 fighters on Vren Prime. The crowd wants to see it break you." Jiwoo smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "They always do." She walked past Doc into the tunnel that led to the arena. The walls were covered in scratches and old bloodstains. How many fighters had walked this path? How many had died on the sand waiting at the end? The sound of the crowd grew louder with each step. Doc scurried alongside her, his clawed feet clicking on the stone floor. "Jiwoo, I must tell you something. I heard the guards talking. They say your brother is here, in the labor camps on the north side of the planet." Jiwoo stopped walking. Her heart began to beat faster. "Yun, he's alive?" "I cannot be certain," Doc said quickly. "But they spoke of a human in the mining operations. Young male. They use him for the deep tunnels because humans can survive in the toxic air longer than other species." Hyun had been on the navigation deck when the Vren attacked. Jiwoo had thought he died in the initial strike. For 8 months she had fought thinking he was gone. Now Doc was telling her he might be alive just a few kilometers away, breathing poison in the dark. "Can you find out for sure?" Jiwoo asked. Doc's ears flattened against his head. "It is dangerous to ask questions, but I will try. For you, I will try." The tunnel opened into blinding light. Jiwoo stepped onto the sand and raised her hand to block the sun. 3 suns hung in the sky above Kalthos 9, turning everything into harsh shadows and burning heat. The crowd noise became deafening. Thousands of aliens in the stands, all different shapes and sizes, all here to watch her fight. Across the arena, a gate rose up and the Thulian crusher walked out. Doc had not been lying about its size. The creature stood at least 3 meters tall, with 4 arms ending in bone clubs. Its skin looked like gray stone and its eyes were small black dots set deep in its massive head. It roared and the sound made the sand vibrate. The arena announcer spoke in the Vren language, his words echoing through the speaker systems. Jiwoo had learned enough to understand the basics. They were calling her the human novelty and the soft-skin survivor. They were telling the crowd that no human had ever defeated a Thulian. They were making bets on how quickly she would die. Jiwoo walked to the center of the arena. The Thulian followed, each step shaking the ground. Up close it was even bigger than she thought. Its arms were thick as tree trunks. One hit from those bone clubs would shatter every bone in her body. The horn sounded to begin the match. The Thulian charged immediately, all 4 arms raised. Jiwoo dove to the side, rolling in the sand. The creature's fist came down where she had been standing, leaving a crater in the arena floor. The crowd cheered. Jiwoo scrambled to her feet and ran, not away from the creature but around it. She needed to see how it moved, how it attacked, where it was slow. This was what humans did. They studied. They learned. They adapted. The Thulian turned to follow her, but it was slow in the rotation. Its body was built for forward power, not quick turns. Jiwoo filed that information away. She dodged another strike, felt the wind from the massive fist as it passed her head. The creature roared in frustration. It began to swing all four arms in wide arcs, trying to catch her. Jiwoo ducked under one strike, jumped over another, twisted away from the third. The fourth caught her shoulder and sent her flying across the sand. The crowd exploded in cheers. Jiwoo hit the ground hard, pain shooting through her back. For a moment she couldn't breathe. Then her lungs remembered how to work and she gasped in air. The Thulian was charging again. She rolled to the side, got to her feet. Her shoulder screamed at her, but she ignored it. Pain was just information. It told you that you were damaged but still alive, still fighting. The Thulian was breathing heavy now. Those massive arms took a lot of energy to swing. It was getting tired while Jiwoo was just getting started. This was another thing humans did better than most species. They didn't tire as fast. They could keep going long after other creatures collapsed. Jiwoo waited for the next charge. When it came, she didn't dodge away. She ran forward toward the creature. It swung down with both right arms. She slid under them on her knees, the sand burning her skin. Then she was behind it, where those massive arms couldn't reach. She jumped onto its back. Her fingers found cracks in the stone-like skin. The Thulian roared and spun, trying to throw her off. Jiwoo held on. She pulled herself higher, wrapping her legs around its thick neck. The creature slammed its back against the arena wall, trying to crush her. Jiwoo felt ribs crack. She didn't let go. Instead, she wrapped her arms around the Thulian's head and covered its eyes with her hands. Blind and panicking, the Thulian stumbled. Jiwoo used her weight to pull its head to the side, throwing off its balance. The massive creature fell and Jiwoo rode it down to the sand. When it tried to rise, she was already moving. She grabbed one of its arms and twisted, using a joint lock she had learned in her military training. The Thulian's stone skin was tough, but the joints were flexible. They had to be, or it couldn't move. She pulled and twisted until she heard the pop of the joint separating. The Thulian screamed. One arm was useless now. Jiwoo moved to the next one. It took 10 minutes to finish the fight. When it was over, the Thulian lay in the sand with all four arms dislocated, crying in pain. Jiwoo stood over it, breathing hard, her body covered in bruises and sand. The arena was silent. Then slowly the crowd began to cheer. Not because they loved her, but because they had witnessed something unexpected. Something that shouldn't have happened. Jiwoo walked back toward the tunnel. Doc met her at the entrance, his eyes wide. That was incredible, he whispered. No one has ever defeated a Thulian that way. Humans don't win by being stronger, Jiwoo said, wincing as she held her ribs. We win by being smarter. As they walked back to the holding cells, Doc spoke quietly. There is something else. After your fight, the guards were talking. They say Vorn the Breaker has been watching your matches. He wants to fight you next. Jiwoo stopped. Everyone in the prison knew about Vorn. The massive Vren Warlord had never lost a fight. He had killed 147 opponents. 2 of them had been human. When? Jiwoo asked. 1 month, Doc said. He wants to make it a special event. To show the galaxy what happens to humans who think they can fight. Jiwoo looked back at the arena, at the crowd still cheering. She thought about Hyun in the mines breathing poison. She thought about Tae and Lieutenant Yoon, dead in the sand. Good, she said. Let him come. I'll show him what a Deathworlder can do. Doc had never really understood what made humans different until he started doing research. In the 3 weeks since Vorn announced the challenge, the little Mirren had spent every free moment in the prison's data archives, reading about Earth. What he found terrified him. Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world. There were only 43 such planets known in the entire galaxy. Most civilized species evolved on Class 3 or 4 worlds, where the gravity was gentle, the predators were small, and the weather was predictable. Earth was none of those things. The gravity alone should have crushed any complex life before it evolved. 1 full standard gravity, 30% higher than the galactic average. Everything on Earth had to be stronger just to stand up. The humans who evolved there had bones like metal rods and muscles that could generate force that seemed impossible for their size. Then there was the oxygen. 21% of Earth's atmosphere was oxygen, a highly reactive poison that burned through cells and created something called free radicals. Most species breathed oxygen concentrations of 12 to 15%. The humans had evolved to not only survive in their toxic air but to use it. Their cells burned fuel faster, healed faster, and could produce enormous energy when needed. The data files showed images of Earth's animals. Doc stared at them in horror. Creatures called lions that hunted in packs, snakes with poison that could kill in minutes, tiny insects that carried diseases which had killed millions of humans throughout their history. And the humans had not just survived alongside these monsters. They had become the dominant species. They had hunted everything else to near extinction. There was a term in the files that kept appearing: persistence predator. Humans had evolved to chase their prey across enormous distances. They couldn't run as fast as many animals, but they could run for hours, for days if needed, until their target collapsed from exhaustion. Then they would move in and kill it. Doc thought about Jiwoo in the arena fighting for 10 minutes straight without stopping, without even breathing hard. Now he understood. For her, that wasn't a long fight. That was nothing. He found Jiwoo in the training cells beneath the arena. She was working through movements that looked like a dance but were clearly combat techniques. Her body flowed from one position to another, practicing strikes and holds against an invisible opponent. "I have information about your brother," Doc said. Jiwoo stopped immediately. "Is it him?" Yes, the mining supervisor confirmed it. Hyun, human, age 24, assigned to the deep shaft operations. He is alive. Jiwoo closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet. "Thank you, Doc, thank you." "There is more," Doc said carefully. "I can arrange for him to watch your fight with Vorn." The supervisors like to show the laborers the arena matches, to remind them what happens to those who resist. I convinced them that seeing his sister fight would be good entertainment. "I need him to see me win," Jiwoo said. "I need him to know I'm coming for him." Doc shuffled his feet nervously. "Jiwoo, I must tell you what I learned about Vorn. He is not like the other fighters you have faced. He is Vren, and the Vren are warriors by evolution. He is 2.8 meters tall. His scales can stop most bladed weapons. He has killed 147 opponents, and he has never even been injured." "I know," Jiwoo said. She went back to her movements, flowing through a series of strikes. "But he's never fought a human who was ready for him." "The 2 humans he killed before were not soldiers," Jiwoo interrupted. "They were ship crew, engineers. They knew how to fight, but they weren't trained like I was. I spent 10 years in Earth Special Forces. I know 200 ways to kill someone with my bare hands." Doc watched her move. There was something frightening about the way she practiced. Every movement had a purpose. Every strike was aimed at a vital point. This wasn't sport. This was murder refined into an art form. "Why do you fight this way?" Doc asked. "Most species have honor codes for combat. Rules about what is acceptable. You fight like you are trying to survive against a monster." Jiwoo stopped and looked at him. "Because on Earth we were. For millions of years, humans were not the strongest or the fastest. We were food for things bigger than us. So we learned to fight dirty. We learned to use every advantage. We learned that honor gets you killed and survival is all that matters." She sat down on the bench and unwrapped her hands. They were covered in scars and calluses. "When I was 16, my instructor told me something I never forgot. She said that humans are not naturally violent. We are naturally survivors. We do whatever it takes to live one more day. That's why we're dangerous. We don't stop. We don't give up. We keep coming back until we win or we're dead." Doc thought about the research he had done, about the human wars that had killed hundreds of millions, about the human explorers who walked across frozen wastelands and burning deserts just to see what was on the other side, about the human athletes who pushed their bodies until bones broke and lungs collapsed just to run a little faster. "You are all insane," he said quietly. Jiwoo laughed. It was the first time Doc had heard her truly laugh. "Yeah, we probably are." Over the next week, Jiwoo trained harder than Doc had ever seen. She ran for hours in the lower gravity, building speed. She practiced falling and rolling, teaching her body to move in the lighter environment. She worked with the heavy bags until her knuckles bled, then wrapped them and kept going. At night, Doc would bring her food and watch her eat. Humans needed so many calories compared to other species. Their bodies burned through energy like a fire. Jiwoo could eat twice as much as a Vren warrior and still be hungry. "Tell me about Vorn's fighting style," Jiwoo said one evening. Doc pulled up videos on his datapad. They watched Vorn's previous fights together. The massive Vren was brutal and efficient. He used his superior reach to keep opponents away, then moved in with overwhelming force when they tired. His scaled armor meant he could ignore most attacks and focus on offense. He is too strong to grapple, Doc said. Everyone who has tried to get close has died. Everyone who tried to grapple him was fighting fair, Jiwoo said. She replayed a section of video where Vorn lifted an opponent over his head and threw them into the wall. Look at how he stands. All his weight on his back leg when he strikes. If I can get him off balance, you will still be underneath him, Doc said. He weighs twice what you do. Weight doesn't matter if you know where to apply pressure, Jiwoo said. She showed Doc a technique from something called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Humans developed ground fighting because we realized that on the ground, technique beats size. A small person who knows what they're doing can control a giant. Doc didn't understand half of what she showed him, but he saw the logic. Humans had spent thousands of years learning to kill things bigger than themselves. They had made it into a science. 3 days before the fight, the arena officials came to Jiwoo's cell. They told her the rules had changed. Normally, fighters got 1 week to recover between matches. For this fight, she would only get 48 hours after her next scheduled bout. They want me tired, Jiwoo said after they left. They're scared I might actually win. This is not fair, Doc protested. Fair doesn't exist, Jiwoo said. She was doing exercises, holding her body in positions that looked painful. There's only winning and losing. I plan to win. Doc wanted to believe her, but he had seen Vorn fight. He had seen what the Warlord did to opponents, and now Jiwoo would face him while injured and exhausted. The night before the fight, Doc brought Jiwoo a message. It had taken him 3 bribes and 2 favors, but he had managed to get it through. It is from Hyun, he said. The guards let him send 1 line. Jiwoo read the message on Doc's screen. Her eyes got wet again. The message was simple. Still breathing, big sister. You better be too. I'm going to get him out, Jiwoo said. After I beat Vorn, the Vren will have to listen. They can't ignore a human who defeats their best warrior. I'll demand Hyun's freedom as my prize. Doc wanted to tell her that the Vren didn't work that way, that they would never honor such a deal. But he saw the look in her eyes and said nothing. Sometimes hope was all you had. That night, Doc did something he had never done before. He went to the arena betting halls and put every credit he owned on Jiwoo to win. The odds were 200 to 1 against her. The other gamblers laughed at him. Let them laugh, Doc thought. They didn't know what he knew. They hadn't read the files about Earth. They didn't understand what a Deathworlder could do when they had something to fight for. As he walked back to his quarters, Doc looked up at the 3 suns setting over Kalthos 9. Tomorrow the galaxy would learn a lesson. Tomorrow they would discover why you should never cage something from a Class 12 death world. Tomorrow Jiwoo would show them what happened when a human decided to stop holding back. The grand arena of Kalthos 9 had never been so full. 200,000 aliens packed the stands, and the betting halls reported that billions more were watching the broadcast across the Vren Empire. They had come to see history. They had come to watch Vorn the Breaker destroy the human who dared to challenge Vren superiority. In the holding cell, Jiwoo wrapped her hands slowly. Her body ached from the fight 2 days ago. She had won, barely, against a Krovan blade dancer. The creature had been fast and had left 3 long cuts across her back before Jiwoo managed to break its legs. The wounds had been cleaned and sealed, but they pulled when she moved. Perfect, she thought. Let them see me hurt. Let them think I'm weak. Doc paced nervously near the door. The crowds are enormous. I have never seen so many. They are calling this the fight of the century. Have you heard from Hyun? Jiwoo asked. Yes, he is in the labor viewing area. He will see everything. Doc hesitated. Jiwoo, it is not too late to forfeit. The Vren would let you live if you surrender before the match begins. You would go back to regular fights. Jiwoo tested her shoulder, rolling it in circles. Pain shot down her arm, but the joint still worked. And Hyun stays in the mines, breathing poison until his lungs fail. No, this ends today. The door opened and 2 Vren guards entered. They were massive creatures, even for their species, with dark green scales and yellow eyes. Time, one of them said in the common tongue. Jiwoo stood and walked toward them. She didn't look back at Doc. She knew if she did, she might see the fear in his eyes, and it would make this harder. The tunnel to the arena was longer than usual. The guards had her walking through the champion's entrance, the same one Vorn would use. They wanted the crowd to see them side by side. To compare the massive Vren warrior to the small human female, the roar of the crowd hit like a physical wave when she stepped into the sunlight. Jiwoo kept her face blank, showing nothing. She walked to the center of the arena and waited. Across from her, another gate opened. Vorn the Breaker emerged, and the crowd noise doubled. He was bigger than Jiwoo had expected from the videos, nearly 3 meters tall, with scales that looked like dark metal plates. His arms were thick with muscle, and his clawed hands could probably crush her skull like an egg. He wore traditional Vren combat gear, armored shorts and nothing else. His chest was covered in scars from 147 fights. He walked toward her slowly, letting the crowd worship him. When he was close enough for Jiwoo to smell his reptilian scent, he stopped and looked down at her. "You are small," Vorn said. His voice was deep and rough. "Smaller than the other humans I killed." "This will be quick." "Good," Jiwoo said. "I have places to be." Vorn's eyes narrowed. Then he laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "You have spirit. I will enjoy breaking it." The arena announcer began speaking, his voice amplified across the massive space. He spoke in Vren first, then in the common tongue. "Citizens of the Empire, you are about to witness a historic event. Vorn the Breaker, undefeated champion of 147 matches, will face the human known as Jiwoo. The human has survived 24 fights, but tonight that survival ends." The crowd cheered. Jiwoo could see aliens in the stands holding signs with Vorn's image. Others were chanting his name. Nobody cheered for her. She was just the human, the curiosity, the creature that would be broken for their entertainment. "The rules are simple," the announcer continued. "Combat continues until death or submission. No weapons, no time limit, no mercy. Let the fight begin." The horn sounded. Vorn didn't waste time. He charged forward immediately, covering the distance between them in 3 massive strides. His fist came down like a hammer. Jiwoo dove to the side, rolling in the sand. The impact where she had been standing left a crater and sent sand flying into the air. The crowd roared approval. They wanted to see the human run. They wanted to see her scared. Vorn turned and swung again. Jiwoo ducked under the blow and moved to his left, trying to circle. But Vorn was faster than his size suggested. His other hand came around in a backhanded strike that caught her in the ribs and sent her tumbling across the arena floor. Pain exploded in her chest. At least one rib had cracked. Jiwoo rolled to her feet, gasping for air. Vorn was already coming again. She tried to dodge, but he anticipated her movement. His knee came up and caught her in the stomach. Jiwoo felt the air rush out of her lungs. She fell to her hands and knees, trying to breathe. Vorn grabbed her by the hair and lifted her off the ground. He held her up for the crowd to see, her feet dangling in the air. The aliens in the stands went wild, chanting his name. "Is this the best a Deathworlder can do?" Vorn shouted to the crowd. "Is this what humanity sends against us?" He threw her. Jiwoo hit the arena wall hard enough to crack the stone. She slid down to the sand and lay there, her vision blurry. Blood ran from her nose and into her mouth. She could taste copper and salt. "Get up," she told herself. "Get up or Hyun dies in those mines." She pushed herself to her knees. The crowd laughed. They actually laughed. To them this was funny. The weak human trying to stand. The pathetic creature that thought it could fight. Vorn walked toward her slowly, playing to the audience. "You humans think you are special. You think your death world makes you strong, but you are soft. You break easily." He kicked her in the ribs, the same ribs he had hit before. Jiwoo heard something crack and rolled away, curling into a ball. The pain was incredible. White spots danced in her vision. But through the pain, part of her mind was still working. Still watching, still learning. Vorn was strong, but he was overconfident. He thought this fight was already won. He was taking his time, enjoying the show. And that was his first mistake. Jiwoo got to her feet again, this time slower, holding her ribs. Vorn smiled at her with his reptilian mouth, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Still alive. Good. I want the crowd to see how long humans can suffer before they break." He attacked again, another massive punch aimed at her head. Jiwoo didn't dodge this time. She stepped forward inside his reach and the blow went over her shoulder. For a moment she was close enough to smell his breath, close enough to see the surprise in his yellow eyes. Then his other hand came around and grabbed her by the throat. He lifted her off the ground again, squeezing. Jiwoo clawed at his hand, trying to break his grip. Her vision started to go dark around the edges. "Weak," Vorn said. "Just like the others." He threw her again. This time Jiwoo hit the sand and rolled. She lay on her back, staring up at the 3 suns. Every breath hurt. Her throat felt crushed. Her ribs were definitely broken. Blood dripped from cuts on her face. The crowd was chanting now. Vorn, Vorn, Vorn. In the labor viewing area somewhere in the arena, Hyun was watching his sister get destroyed. Jiwoo thought about that. Thought about how he must feel, seeing her broken in the sand. She had promised herself she would save him. She had promised she would get him out of this place. And Jiwoo didn't break promises. She rolled onto her stomach and pushed herself up. Her arms shook. Her legs felt weak. But she stood. Vorn's smile faded. You should stay down. I will make it quick if you stay down. No, Jiwoo said. Her voice was rough, damaged from his grip on her throat. You want to know what makes humans special? It's not that we're strong. It's that we don't know when to quit. She raised her fists again, settling into a fighting stance. Blood dripped from her nose onto the sand. Vorn's expression changed. For the first time, Jiwoo saw something other than confidence in his eyes. Confusion. Maybe the beginning of concern. You cannot win, he said. I have broken you. Why do you stand? Because I'm human, Jiwoo said. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the one who refuses to die. She charged at him, not running away anymore, running toward him. Vorn swung, a massive haymaker that should have taken her head off. But Jiwoo had been watching his patterns. She knew how he moved now. She ducked under the punch and kept coming. His knee came up. She twisted and took it on her shoulder instead of her stomach. Pain shot through her body, but she grabbed his leg and held on. Vorn tried to shake her off. Tried to hit her with his free hand. But Jiwoo was too close now, inside his reach where his size was a disadvantage. She wrapped herself around his leg like a snake and twisted. For the first time in 147 fights, Vorn the Breaker fell. He hit the sand hard and the arena went silent. 200,000 aliens stopped cheering. They stared in disbelief at their champion on his back, with a human wrapped around his leg. Vorn roared in rage and tried to get up, but Jiwoo moved with him, staying attached, using her weight and position to keep him off balance. Every time he pushed up, she pulled or twisted, and he fell again. The crowd's silence broke. They began to boo, to shout. Some threw things into the arena. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. The human was supposed to be broken by now. Vorn finally managed to grab her and pull her off his leg. He held her by the arm and raised his fist to crush her skull. Jiwoo looked up at him and smiled. Her teeth were red with blood. Now you're scared, she said. Good, you should be. The arena had gone from deafening noise to absolute silence. 200,000 aliens stared in shock as Vorn the Breaker held his damaged arm. Their champion, undefeated for 5 years, had been injured. By a human. In the handler section, Doc watched his data pad with shaking hands. Jiwoo's vital signs were displayed on the screen, and what he saw should have been impossible. Her heart rate was at 190 beats per minute. Her adrenaline levels were 400% above baseline. The medical scanner marked several broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, and severe bruising across her entire torso. She should be unconscious. She should be dying. Instead, her biological readings showed something Doc had only read about in the Earth files. A human body in full survival mode. On the sand, Jiwoo stood swaying slightly. Blood ran from her nose, her mouth, cuts on her face. Her breathing came in short gasps because her broken ribs made deep breaths impossible. But her eyes had changed. Doc could see it even from his distance. They had gone flat and cold. The predator stare, the look that humans got when their brain shifted from thinking to hunting. Vorn circled her, favoring his injured arm. The crowd began to murmur. Some were calling for the fight to be stopped. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was something else. Something that frightened them. You will die for this, Vorn said. His voice was no longer confident. It was angry, threatened. I will tear you apart. Jiwoo didn't respond. She didn't waste energy on words. Her body had shifted into pure survival mode, and every system was focused on one goal. Destroy the threat. Vorn charged again, but this time his movements were sloppy. The injured arm affected his balance. Jiwoo didn't try to dodge. She moved forward to meet him, ducking under his good arm and driving her elbow into his ribs. The scales that armored Vorn were tough, but they had gaps, places where they overlapped to allow movement. Jiwoo had been watching for those gaps all fight. Her elbow found one and sank in deep. She felt something crack under the impact. Vorn roared and backhanded her with his injured arm. The pain of using it made the strike weak. Jiwoo rolled with the impact and came back to her feet. She was faster now. The lower gravity that had seemed strange for months suddenly felt right. Her body, trained under Earth's crushing one-standard gravity, could move like a dancer here. Every jump went higher. Every movement was quicker. She had been fighting in light armor this whole time and hadn't realized it. Vorn tried to grab her again. Jiwoo slipped to the side and drove her knee into the same spot she had elbowed. Another crack. Another roar from the Vren Warlord. The crowd was getting louder now, but the sound had changed. It wasn't excitement. It was unease. They were watching their perfect champion get taken apart piece by something they had dismissed as weak. Overseer Klen stood in the viewing box, his scales pale with shock. He had arranged this fight. He had rigged it to humiliate humanity. Now he watched in horror as the human refused to die. "Stop the fight," someone said beside him. "We cannot," Klen replied. "The rules are clear. It continues until death or submission. Then make Vorn submit. Vorn has never submitted. He will not start now." On the sand, Vorn was learning what every predator on Earth had learned over millions of years. You could be bigger, stronger, more powerful, but it meant nothing if your enemy refused to stop coming. He swung again and again, each blow powerful enough to shatter stone. But Jiwoo was moving on instinct now, her training and her evolution guiding her. Dodge, counter, strike the weak points. Don't waste energy. Stay alive one more second. Then another. Then another. A punch caught her shoulder and dislocated it. Jiwoo screamed, but the sound was rage, not surrender. She grabbed her limp arm with her good hand and slammed it against the arena wall. The shoulder popped back into place with a sound like breaking wood. She didn't even pause before turning back to Vorn. Doc stared at his datapad. "Impossible," he whispered. She just relocated her own shoulder. The pain should have made her faint. But the pain wasn't making her faint. It was making her angry. This was what the research files had talked about. Human pain tolerance wasn't just about enduring suffering. It was about using suffering as fuel. Vorn was breathing hard now. His injured arm hung useless. His ribs were cracked. For the first time in his life, he understood what it felt like to be prey. "Submit," Jiwoo said. Her voice was rough and broken, but loud enough to carry across the silent arena. "Submit and live." "Never," Vorn growled. "I am Vren. We do not submit to lesser species." "Then you'll die learning that we're not lesser," Jiwoo said. She attacked differently now. Before she had been defensive, surviving. Now she was hunting. Her strikes came faster, targeting the same injured spots over and over. Break the armor, find the weakness, exploit it until the enemy falls. Vorn tried to keep her away with his superior reach, but his movements were slower. The injuries were adding up. Jiwoo got inside his guard and drove both hands into his throat, a strike aimed at crushing his windpipe. Vorn gagged and stumbled back. His clawed hand came up and raked across Jiwoo's face. 4 lines of fire opened from her forehead to her chin. Blood poured down, covering her vision in red. Jiwoo didn't wipe it away. She blinked blood out of her eyes and kept coming. In the labor viewing area, Hyun watched his sister and felt tears running down his face. He remembered her before the war, before the capture. She had been kind then, gentle. She used to sing to him when he couldn't sleep. The creature in the arena wasn't his sister anymore. It was what 8 months in hell had created. A survivor, a weapon, a thing that would not die no matter what was done to it. Vorn threw a desperate punch with his good arm. Jiwoo caught it, not blocking it but grabbing his wrist as it came toward her. She used his own momentum to pull him off balance, stepping to the side as he stumbled forward. Then she was behind him, her arm wrapping around his thick neck. Vorn tried to throw her off, but she had her legs wrapped around his waist now, locked together in a hold that couldn't be broken with strength alone. "You humans fight without honor," Vorn gasped, trying to pry her arm from his throat. "Honor is for people who can afford to lose," Jiwoo said in his ear. "We fight to survive, and we're very, very good at surviving." She squeezed. The technique was called a rear naked choke, and it cut off blood flow to the brain. Vorn thrashed and spun, trying to slam her against the wall. Jiwoo held on. Her ribs ground together. Her shoulder screamed. She didn't let go. Vorn's vision began to blur. His movements became weaker. For the first time in 147 fights, Vorn the Breaker felt fear. "Submit," Jiwoo said again. Last chance. Vorn's pride wouldn't let him. He had built his entire identity on never losing, on being unbreakable. How could he submit to a human, to a creature from a species they had mocked and enslaved? His legs buckled. He dropped to his knees in the sand. The crowd watched in absolute silence as their champion fell. "Submit," Jiwoo said a third time. Her voice was almost gentle now. "Please, I don't want to kill you." Vorn tried to speak, but no air reached his lungs. His clawed hand scraped weakly at her arm. His yellow eyes began to close. Jiwoo felt his body go limp. She held the choke for 3 more seconds to be sure, then released it and pushed him away. Vorn collapsed face first in the sand, unconscious. The arena remained silent. Jiwoo stood over the fallen warlord, swaying on her feet. She looked up at the viewing boxes where Overseer Klen sat. "I want my brother," she said. Her voice shouldn't have carried that far, but in the total silence every word was heard. "I won. I want Hyun released now." Klen stared at her. At the human who had done the impossible. At the creature from a death world that had just defeated the Empire's greatest warrior. "Guards," he said weakly. "Get her medical attention." "My brother first," Jiwoo insisted. She took a step toward the viewing box and stumbled. Her legs were giving out. The adrenaline that had kept her moving was fading, and the damage to her body was catching up. She fell to her knees, then to her hands. The sand felt cool against her skin. She wanted to lie down. She wanted to sleep. But she couldn't, not yet. "My brother," she said again, her voice barely a whisper now. Doc ran onto the arena floor, his small body moving faster than it ever had. He reached Jiwoo and caught her as she fell. "You did it," he said, tears running down his fox-like face. "You actually did it. Nobody will ever doubt humans again." Jiwoo looked at him with eyes that could barely focus. "Hyun? They will release him. They have to. You defeated Vorn. The whole galaxy is watching. They cannot refuse now," Jiwoo smiled. Blood stained her teeth red. "Good. Tell him I kept my promise." Then her eyes closed and she knew nothing else. In the stands, 200,000 aliens sat in stunned silence. On screens across the Empire, billions more watched the same scene. A human female, broken and bleeding, lying in the sand next to the fallen body of Vorn the Breaker. The galaxy had learned a lesson today. They had learned what happened when you underestimated a Deathworlder. They had learned why you should never cage a human who had something to fight for. Most importantly, they had learned that humanity was done being dismissed as weak. The age of underestimating Earth's children was over. Jiwoo woke up 3 days later in a medical facility that was much nicer than the fighters' cells. The walls were clean. The bed was soft. Medical equipment beeped quietly around her, monitoring her vital signs. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through her entire body. Every muscle ached. Every bone felt bruised. Her ribs were wrapped in some kind of medical bandaging that sealed tight against her skin. "Do not move," a voice said. Doc appeared beside her bed, his fox-like face showing relief. "The doctors had to rebuild half your skeleton. You will need another week to heal." "Hyun?" Jiwoo asked. Her voice was rough, her throat still damaged from Vorn's grip. Doc's ears perked up and he smiled. "Waiting outside. The guards would not let him in until you woke up. Should I bring him?" Jiwoo nodded. Tears were already forming in her eyes. Doc scurried to the door and opened it. A young man rushed in, thin and dirty from months in the mines, but alive. Hyun stopped beside her bed, staring at her like he couldn't believe she was real. "Big sister," he said in Korean. His voice broke on the words. "Little brother," Jiwoo replied in the same language. She held out her hand and he grabbed it, holding tight. They sat like that for a long time, not speaking, just being together. Finally alive and in the same room after months of thinking each other was dead. "I watched the fight," Hyun finally said. "Everyone in the mines watched it. They couldn't believe what you did. Nobody could. I made a promise to get you out," Jiwoo said. "I keep my promises." Hyun laughed, but it turned into a sob. "You almost died. I thought I was going to watch you die." "Humans are hard to kill," Jiwoo said. She smiled despite the pain. "The galaxy is learning that now." Doc cleared his throat politely. "There is much news. The fight has been broadcast across the Empire. Everyone has seen it. The betting halls are still processing payouts. I became very wealthy from my bet on you." "Good for you, Doc," Jiwoo said. "But that is not the important news," Doc continued. His tail was swishing excitedly. "The Vren authorities have been receiving messages from across the galaxy. Other species are demanding to know why humans were enslaved. Earth's government has sent diplomats. There are warships on the way." Jiwoo tried to process this. Warships. 3 Earth battle cruisers. They will arrive in 2 weeks. The Vren are very nervous. They have never seen human military ships before, but after watching you fight, they are not taking chances. The door opened again, and a tall Vren official entered. Not Overseer Klen, but someone older with dark blue scales and ceremonial armor. 2 guards followed him. I am Magistrate Wren, the Vren said formally. I speak for the Kalthos 9 Authority. I have come to discuss the terms of your release. What about the other humans? Jiwoo asked immediately. There are 17 more prisoners from other ships. I want them released too. Magistrate Wren's eyes narrowed. That was not part of the agreement. Then make it part of the agreement, Jiwoo said. She struggled to sit up straighter, ignoring the pain. You saw what one human can do when you make us angry. Do you really want to find out what happens when Earth sends soldiers who are trained and equipped? The magistrate was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. The 17 humans will be released and sent with you when the Earth ships arrive. This is acceptable. And the other species, Jiwoo added. The ones who were enslaved like us. I want them freed too. That is beyond my authority. Then get someone with more authority, Jiwoo interrupted. You broadcast my fight across your empire to show everyone what happens to humans who resist. Now the whole galaxy knows what happens when you enslave us. You think other species didn't notice? You think they're not going to ask why their people are still in your chains? Magistrate Wren's scales paled slightly. You are demanding the collapse of our labor system. I'm demanding you stop enslaving people, Jiwoo said. There's a difference. Figure it out before the Earth warships get here. The magistrate looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Jiwoo's eyes stopped him. Even injured, even lying in a medical bed, she had the look of someone who had beaten their greatest warrior. Someone dangerous. I will convey your demands to the High Council, he said stiffly. Then he turned and left, his guards following. When they were gone, Hyun stared at his sister in amazement. You just threatened a Vren magistrate. He enslaved humans, Jiwoo said. He's lucky threatening is all I did. Over the next week, Jiwoo's injuries healed faster than the alien doctors expected. They kept running tests, fascinated by human regeneration rates. What would take a Vren 6 weeks to heal took Jiwoo less than 2. Her bones were already fusing back together. Her muscles were rebuilding. Doc visited every day, bringing news from across the empire. The story of her fight had spread like fire. Other enslaved species were beginning to resist their Vren overseers. Several labor camps had experienced riots. The Vren military was struggling to maintain control. You have started a revolution, Doc said one afternoon. The whole galaxy is watching Earth now. They want to know what kind of species produces fighters like you. We're not all fighters, Jiwoo said. We're explorers, scientists, artists. We just happen to be very good at surviving when we need to be. The Vren called an emergency council, Doc continued. They are voting on whether to release all enslaved species. The vote is tomorrow. Will they do it? Hyun asked. Doc's ears twitched. They do not have a choice. 3 Earth warships are now 5 days away. The Vren scanned them. Each ship has enough firepower to crack a planet. And the humans sent a message saying they will not negotiate until all prisoners are freed. Jiwoo smiled. Earth had always seemed so far away during her months in the arena. Now knowing that her people were coming, that they were willing to go to war for their citizens made her chest feel warm. On the 9th day after the fight, Jiwoo was finally allowed to walk outside the medical facility. Hyun supported her as they stepped into the sunlight. Other prisoners stopped and stared. Some of them bowed. Others simply watched with expressions of awe. A Thulian crusher approached, moving slowly. Jiwoo recognized it as the one she had fought months ago before Vorn. It stopped a respectful distance away and lowered its massive head. You honor us, it said in broken common tongue. You show that strength is not about size. Thank you. Jiwoo nodded back. Strength is about refusing to give up. Remember that. Word came that night. The Vren High Council had voted. All enslaved species would be freed. Labor camps across the empire would be shut down. Prisoners would be returned to their homeworlds or given transport to anywhere they wanted to go. The decision came with a statement that was broadcast across the empire. The Vren acknowledged that enslaving species from Deathworlds had been an error in judgment. They announced a new policy of non-aggression toward humanity and requested diplomatic relations with Earth. Doc brought Jiwoo the news with his tail wagging excitedly. You did it. You freed thousands of people. Vorn did it, Jiwoo said quietly. If he had just submitted, none of this would have changed. But he was too proud. He had to keep fighting until I broke him. That's what the galaxy needed to see, that their champions could be broken. 5 days later, the Earth warships arrived. Jiwoo and Hyun stood on the landing platform with the other freed human prisoners, watching 3 massive ships descend through the atmosphere. They were beautiful and terrible, flying fortresses that spoke of humanity's industrial might. The largest ship landed first. A ramp extended and a woman in Earth military uniform walked down. She was older than Jiwoo, with silver hair and a face that had seen combat. The insignia on her shoulder marked her as an admiral. She walked directly to Jiwoo and saluted. Petty Officer Jiwoo, Admiral Mirai Park, Earth Defense Force. It's an honor to meet you. Jiwoo saluted back even though it hurt her still healing shoulder. Admiral, thank you for coming. We would have come sooner if we'd known you were alive, Admiral Mirai said. When the footage of your fight reached Earth, the entire planet demanded action. You've become a symbol, Jiwoo, the woman who proved humans belong in this galaxy. I just wanted to save my brother, Jiwoo said. Admiral Mirai smiled. The best heroes never set out to be heroes, come on. Let's go home. As they walked toward the ship, Jiwoo looked back at Kalthos 9. She saw Doc standing near the platform entrance, watching. She walked over to him. Come with us, she said. You helped me. You believed in me. Earth could use people like you. Doc's eyes went wide.
You want me to come to the Deathworld?
It's not that scary once you get used to it, Jiwoo said. And someone needs to write the real story of what happened here. You were there for all of it. You should be the one to tell it. Doc thought for a moment, then nodded. Yes, I will come. Someone must tell the galaxy the truth about humans. Not the propaganda. Not the fear. The truth. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Jiwoo spent the time recovering and getting to know the crew. They treated her like a celebrity, which felt strange. She was just a soldier who had done what needed to be done. But she listened to their stories and learned what had happened after her capture. How Earth had searched for survivors. How the military had prepared for war. How the whole planet had watched her fight and cheered when she won.